Hey everyone, welcome to the second episode of Smart Dumb PhD's podcast. Smart because you need to have the right strategies to excel in your career, and dumb because you need to be dull enough to believe that you can achieve things that are way out of your league right now. Okay, that's why it has to be. You have to be smart as well as dumb. And on this second episode of this Smart Dumb PhD podcast, I have with me a very interesting person who had a very interesting journey, and it's inspiring too. But I particularly want to speak about three things about this person that stands out for me. And it starts with the number one pointer being he was awarded the extraordinary ability visa by United States. The second thing being his journey from being a product engineer at Siemens to becoming a technical product manager at Tubi has been nothing close to a linear, conventional career journey that we look forward to. And we're going to learn more about it as we move forward in this podcast. And the third thing being which ties all of this together and speaks volumes about his thought process is his one belief that most of us have more or less the same abilities and skills, but how far we go depends on how we think, how we feel, and how we act. And it is Rudra Roy Choudhury, right now technical product manager at Tubi. And Rudra, a very warm welcome to the Smart Dumb PhD podcast. Thank you so much for agreeing to be guest on this podcast. And with that, I'm not getting into the details of what more you have achieved when it comes to being a product manager with 7 years of experience spanning over various platforms from SaaS to automation to social media. But I want to hear from you quickly in the next 2 or 3 minutes about your journey and what has being a product manager taught you. If you could summarize three things that you have learned as being a product manager and how you came to where you are right now.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, but firstly, Rima, thank you so much for having me on your podcast. I still remember, I think it was about a year back roughly when you shared with me, this idea about you starting a podcast. So yeah, I have followed your journey throughout, which is like, nothing less of extraordinary. So I'm really glad that we are finally able to connect and, you hosted me here. So just to briefly talk about my learnings from product management, I mean, we can get into all the details later on, but I think as a product manager, there are three key things that I've really learned and that I really, try to practice every single day, which is one, um, as a human, you really need to connect with your users and understand that exactly, what are the problems they are facing. I believe as a product manager, that's really sort of the starting point of anything that you do. Because if you don't understand, if you are not empathetic enough to, really sort of comprehend like what are the challenges of the customers or the users whom you are planning to serve, you will never possibly come up with the right product. So that's number one. Number two, I'd say, is the power of data. Like, speaking with customers is one thing, but I think I personally, as a product manager, depend a lot on data as well. So whether it's about, experimentation to understand that, what works well, what doesn't work well, or it's about like, figuring out customer segments or market analysis. I think data is one of the most powerful tools that I leverage as a product manager and something that has really helped me successfully do my job. And the third thing, and probably the most important thing, something that also motivated me to move to product management, which is really this ability to, create tangible impact on the society. This is something that, inspires me every single day. And this is that I'd say the main reason why I love being a product manager is that I can see ideas on which I work, and then that idea, coming to the market where I see someone using that idea, right, to solve some of their problems, right? I think that's the most fulfilling, I would say, emotion that I realize as a product manager when I see that something that I build is actually being used by people to solve some of the critical day-to-day issues. Yeah, I mean, there are many other things, but if I have to pick up, I'd say like, these are the top three things that, motivates me as a product manager. And like, these are the top three learnings that, I try to keep on honing every single day.
Right. So, Rudra, the third pointer, which is about tangible impact, I think industry is all about creating that tangible impact. And I so resonate on that emotion when you say that when you see your product being used by real customers and you know what has been the research and what has been the data, what has been the market understanding and the strategies that you have put in, and all of that ties in together nicely to see the product functioning, is something you can't describe in words, right? And
Correct.
because again, this show is more about how PhDs can get into such roles. One thing that's missing while we are doing PhD is we are not able to see the impact of our work in real world, right? It's all very much in theory, right? So when you had to make this transition, say from being a product engineer to a product manager, I see in your journey you have been through this process of acquiring a degree where you went to
Mhm.
a university and acquired the engineering management degree, right? Now, how important you think is, or how much does acquiring a degree like a PhD or an MBA facilitate the journey of getting into product management or any other role one is planning to get into?
Yeah, that's a very good question. And I think I'll take few minutes here to sort of explain the different scenarios that can exist in this kind of a case, because what I have learned over time is that this question will probably have different answers for different people depending on where they're coming from. If you ask for, and I think this is probably the most relevant answer since this show largely focuses on PhDs and people who are in research. I think for people like that, it is important to, if you can get a degree like, like a master's in product management or master's in technology management from one of these universities. And I'll tell you the reason. I know there's a, when it comes to, when it comes to hiring in the industry, a lot of people talk about the fact that we are interested in hiring, people from diverse backgrounds.
Mm.
We want people like having different skills and everything to kind of come in. A lot of people talk about this, but if you ask me about unfiltered reality, there's
Mm.
actually very, very, very few people who actually appreciate this. If I have to give a very simple example for people to understand easily, if I am applying, let's say, for a job in Uber, the hiring manager will want, if I've applied in a company, if I've worked in a company like Ola, or if I've worked in a company like Lyft,
Mm.
right?
Mm.
He or she really doesn't care if I have a PhD from Harvard or if I have like some other degree, like let's say an MBA from Harvard or whatever. That
Mhm.
can be the starting point of the conversation. The hiring manager might think that, okay, I mean, this person has really good degree.
Mm.
So I'm assuming, they will be decently good. So let's
Mm.
talk with him or her.
Mm.
But I can tell you based on my experience, Rima, the final hiring decision that purely happens on exactly, what experience you have in the
Mm.
industry
Mm.
and how much is that relevant to the particular job that you have applied for.
Mm.
Having said that, going back to your original question, I feel that if someone is already too engrossed along the research trajectory and he or she is planning to make a move,
Mm.
in such case, doing a degree like this is helpful
Mm.
because I think, this kind of academic program, especially like if you're doing it in some decent universities,
Mm.
it will offer you a lot of opportunities for, like things like getting involved in side projects or getting involved in internships, which are more business oriented.
Right. Yeah.
And you can use those skills um, to kind of, navigate your narrative when you're applying for like business related jobs. Like if I take my own example, when I was in Cornell doing this degree of engineering management, I did a couple of internships, like, where my role was very much focused on like product and strategy and marketing and things like that. And trust me or not, when I was applying for jobs, it was not the 3 years of research I did at IIT Madras or the 2 years of product engineering job, which I very successfully did at Siemens, but rather this internship experience that I had to more highlight on
Mm.
because I was no longer, applying for a R&D engineer kind of a role. I was applying for product management consulting roles,
Right.
and they don't care if I have been a fantastic electrical engineer or whatever, right?
Mm.
So you have to sell people what they want to buy. It's
Exactly.
more like that.
Yes.
So I think to summarize this question, yes, if someone is trying to move from research into product management or consulting or project management, a degree like this can help in getting him or her opportunities through which they can try to build actual hands-on experience that will be very suitable for this kind of business roles.
Right. Rudra, I just want to stay on that question a little bit longer, just to elaborate on
Mhm,
certain points. You said
mhm.
that a degree like that would be helpful. But again, on that point, I want to elaborate on the fact that the degree alone might not be helpful, but the internship that comes with the degree gives you space to apply that degree, and how you leverage that internship in your, say, job interviews where you might be going for a PM role is what stands out. Would you add to that? Would you say that is right?
100%. That's why exactly what I tried to say. So the degree alone is not at all helpful, if I have to say. So if some, let's say there are two-person both are coming out from Harvard, one person has carried out his 2, 3 internships, other person did nothing. Nobody will care whether he or she came out from Harvard or not. It doesn't
Right.
matter. That's my
Yes.
experience. Like I'll talk everything on basis of facts that I have gone through.
Exactly.
When I started applying, right after graduating from Cornell, um, my initial thought process, and I'm not being egoistic or anything, but my like just logical thought process was initially that okay, I went to IIT, I started in Cornell, so it's just a matter of time that I will probably like get a lot of interview calls. So my assumption was that if I apply to 10 places, it at least has to be around from 7 places that I get calls.
Yeah.
It turned out that it was probably from one place that I got a call,
Yeah.
right? And that was kind of reality for me, where I realized that, and then every interview, the hiring managers will tell me that, oh, you went to IIT, you studied in Cornell, like it's amazing, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But I could see that when it eventually came to making the decision, it was not Cornell or IIT, the name itself that really made a difference, but it all came down to everything is great about you, but unfortunately, the kind of work that you have done doesn't really align with what we are looking for, right?
Right. Yeah.
So that was a very eye opener for me. So to your point, 100%, the degree itself, the name of or the brand of the affiliation itself has no value until and unless you are leveraging that to gain some real experience that you can sell.
Right. And that pointer you mentioned that people are saying that with your educational degree and the journey that you have been through with the best of institutes, they do appreciate you for that. And they see that, okay, you're talented, but we're going with somebody else. And this has been happening with PhDs who have been working with me, where they came out saying that, okay, they're saying that you're very talented, but right now we're going with somebody else. And they didn't know what's going wrong. So that's where we focused on making portfolios that are aligned with the job that show those skill sets. So Rudra, on that note, I want to ask you, say, if someone had to apply for a product manager role after doing their PhD, though you mentioned that these are the kind of degrees that they can go for, but what are the 3 traits that you would look for in the person, apart from the skill sets, that you think would make them a good product manager?
Okay. Yeah, that's a very relevant question here. So I'd say if I have to hire someone as a product manager, or more precisely, someone is coming out from a PhD, right? 3 things that I would look at is one, is the person analytical enough to break down a complex problem into simpler steps, and can he or she follow a sort of a structured and organized process to reach the solution? I don't care so much about the final solution. That's not so important for me. But is the structure or the approach that the person is taking, is that a very logical approach, right? um, the second thing that I look for is the person agile? And this is a very, very important point, and something that I know often works against people who are coming from research, because I mean, conceptually, what you need to be in a PhD is different from what you need to be in roles like product management. Product management, today I'm working on, let's say, uh, certain thing. In 1 month, I have to work on something else.
Right.
I cannot say that, no, this is only my area of expertise and I want to be only engrossed in this. That you cannot be successful in the industry as a product manager if that's your mindset. Whereas in a PhD or in any research degree, if we say, the whole idea is you go deep and deep and deep into one particular niche, right?
Yes.
I can tell you, like, I've got feedback from hiring managers, like not for me, but for other people who had, like applied for a role in my company, where the hiring manager said that this person is great. Like, he's a PhD from some really good institutes at what he does. He is great. But the issue is what we kind of doubt is he might not be so agile, and he might be too much in love with exactly what he does. Right.
Yeah.
So if you tell him tomorrow that no, this is not will do, we need to shift and we need to do something else, we're not sure that if that person will still be motivated enough, because he has spent 6, 7 years of his life just working on this particular thing. Right.
Yeah.
So that is the second thing I look for. Like if a person is agile and flexible and like very much open-minded, that depending on the business need, I am more than happy to shift gears, right? Uh, and the third thing I'd say is, in general, if the person has a good business sense, right? This is very, very important. And this is again something I feel it's not a fault of the candidates, but I think it's just because how the entire environment is being set up, especially I'd say in India, in the academic research ecosystem in India. I think, and even I had this thing when I was doing research, I had the same misconception. We are somehow made to believe that if you are doing research, then you should not be thinking so much about business, right? We are made to believe that, don't think about revenue, don't think about, sales and anything. Your work as a researcher is just to do experiments and get results, right? But the problem is, at the end of the day, whatever field, whatever industry, whatever domain you might be in, at the end of the day, whatever you are building, if that doesn't sell in the market, it's useless. In simple
Absolutely.
words, you might have spent 24 hours a day for 6 years, 8 years, 9 years doing that. You
Yes.
might have even like great publications.
Right.
But at the end of the day, if that product cannot be sold in the market, if there's no customer to buy that solution is pretty useless. There
Yes.
are there are very rare exceptions here, I would say, where, and we have seen this happening historically as well, where some research happened and then for some reason around that particular point of time, there's not a lot of due credit given, but later on people did realize the importance of that research, right?
Right.
But
Right.
I think that is exception. But
Yes.
in general, I believe that whether you are coming from PhD or any other research background, if you want to be successful in roles like product management or consulting or any other business roles, you definitely need to build some business acumen, which means that, okay, I don't, as a PhD, you already know exactly what's going on behind building the product. You are the expert in that. Nobody doubts you.
Right.
But do you know how to sell the product? Do you know whom that product should be sold? Do you know how to market that product, right?
Right. Right.
So I
Yeah.
think all these things are very important. And um, the other thing which I find, like people from research would probably need to build some skills on for moving to business roles, which is um, not getting engrossed in the idea itself, but really working on an idea if that has relevance. So what I'm trying to say is that I've seen many times, I mean, I think even it has happened with me as well, where I am so much in love with a scientific idea I don't even care to see that, okay, what will be the outcome or, is there any relevance or is it really required and anything around that, right? I'm just like, okay, this idea is great scientifically. I really find exciting. Let's do it, right? But I think that's somewhere where researchers need to be a little careful about that. It's not just about solving any idea or building anything that you might be in love with. Uh, you really have to build for the customer.
Right.
So
Right.
if you have some really brilliant idea, but it's not relevant for any end user, then probably the better option is to skip that idea, however brilliant it might be, and then work on something that makes sense. But yeah, if I summarize, these will be the main 3 or 4 things that I will look for if I have to hire a PhD or someone from research for a business role.
Right. And I again resonate on this one. The two things that stand out for me is the depth you have been talking about. And having worked with General Electric, I do realize the importance of breadth. We had to move on to projects that serve the business. And so there were business problems at the customer ends, the products not meeting the requirements. So we had this 6 months goal to modify the product and get it back on track. And then we had this 10 years, research where products are coming 10 years down the line in the market, right? So that was kind of a long research. So it was divided between these two, and that's why the idea of being stuck at just one project was never happening. So we had to build this breadth across in addition to the depth that was already there. And the second pointer that you mentioned of being agile, I guess this was also my LinkedIn post just recently, which was about accountability, right? The accountability in business environment, business ecosystem is so high. If you're not meeting the revenue goals, your job is at stake. But that's not true with research or PhD. You are allowed to do that continuous exploration unlimitedly. And somewhere there has to be a boundary over there, how much you can keep doing and where you need to, stop and start looking at other things that might be more relevant. So I guess that's where we miss out when it comes to research, right? Now, I know you went through this transition over a period of, say, 1 year or 2 years. Rudra, can you just correct me? What was the time span it took for you?
Or moving to product?
Yes.
I'd say around 1.5 years.
1.5 years, right? So anyone looking forward to a career transition like that, what do you think should be the time span that they should look forward to? And what are some breadcrumbs or clues that they can get in the process that makes them realize, okay, they are on the right path, because this is a path which is very uncertain, right? The next step unfolds as you move forward step by step. So can you let us know about that?
Yes. So yeah, I think let me talk through exactly what my mindset was when I decided that I want to make the transition and exactly what I did to get
Yeah,
it done.
yeah,
Right?
yeah,
I'm not saying this is the best route. There can be people who might do this better than
yeah,
me.
yeah,
But I thought that maybe this is a good
yeah,
starting point, right?
yeah, yeah,
Like telling people actually what worked for me, right?
yeah,
So I was in Siemens, like you said, as a
yeah.
product engineer when I decided that I want to make this move to product management.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, I also wanted to, explore, like I'd say, life in general outside of India. So
Mm-hmm.
both of these combined, I thought that, okay, making a move to US made the most sense to me. I came to Cornell in 2019, leaving my job in Siemens. Did this program, which was 1 year. I didn't go for a very extensive program because I kind of had some idea that, you know, it's not about the degree really. It's
Yeah,
really about how am I able to sell my skills and experience that's going to matter.
yeah.
Uh, so I completed this 1 year program at Cornell, graduated in 2020,
Mm.
tried for product management roles. However, I wasn't really getting
Mm.
right
Mm.
full-time product management roles. I wasn't really, getting a lot of calls in, and whatever little bit of calls I got, I told some of the reasons to you earlier in this call. Like, I was always getting rejected after 4 or 5 rounds.
Right.
Eventually, it will come down to that same point that you are great. However, the experience doesn't match, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So beyond one point, I started my job search very early, I'd say. So I came to Cornell in August 19, and then I started my job search from around November, December itself. So and the reason was because I have heard from other people that from outside it might seem certain things, but it's not so easy when you're trying to land your first role even in the US.
Yeah.
So I started my process very early. Uh, the advantage that I got because of that was that I got ample time to fail,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But at 3 months, I just applied, I tried various things, I failed. But what happened was I understood that, what was the problem that was happening, right? And I understood that, okay, beyond this point, I do get it that just selling brand names like IIT and Cornell is not going to help me land a PM role.
Right.
What I need is experience and skills that are highly aligned with PM,
Mm.
and which is something that I know honestly myself that I haven't done before,
Mm.
right?
Mm.
I need to get that done.
Mm.
So once I understood that, I started focusing more on internships and side projects
Mm.
where I can develop product management skills. Like I mentioned earlier, I did a couple of internships when
Mm.
I was at Cornell.
Mm.
Uh, and I also did a couple of side projects, right?
Mm.
They're not really some, projects with big companies or anything.
Mm.
But I understood that even I have some good side projects. I mean, I can, if not anything, at least I can hone my skills more in
Mm.
product management through
Mm.
those projects.
Mm.
That's what I did. Once I graduated, as international students, we have a lot of restrictions on visa and like, things like you need to find a job within so many days, otherwise you're out from US and all of that. So I knew that, okay, if I'm not able to land a product management role right now, that's okay. But I want to do something that will direct me towards a direction,
Yeah.
right? I mean, what I definitely don't want to do is again become R&D engineer
Mm.
because I know that's not a role that's going to, push me towards the final goal that I have.
Yeah.
So I took up a job in I think this company called HCL.
Mm.
So as a program manager.
Mm. Mm.
Program manager is not same as product management,
Mm.
but there are certain overlapping skills in both the roles. So that was my mindset behind taking off the program management role. I
Mm.
started working there, but at the back of my mind, I knew that this is not where I want to be. I want
Mm.
to be a product manager.
Mm.
So I kept building my skills in the meantime. When I was in ACL, I tried to work on, I know it's not always feasible, but I tried to incline myself towards such projects which had more of like, product aspects involved.
Mm.
Uh, I worked there for about 1 year
Mm.
and, I started like applying again for PM roles,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Um, I tried and I failed again.
Mm.
But I also had in mind that it's okay if I fail for PM roles, but I don't want to, stop my career growth. So I want to continue growing while I'm building the skills for PM roles. So from ACL, I moved to this very small company called Entity, who is a consulting firm here.
Right. Yeah.
But the reason I moved is because I felt that, it's more of a startup sort of a place where I will get to like really drive exactly what kind of projects I want to work on. And there's a lot of opportunity for you to learn, I'd say, right? Which is not really possible in a lot of big companies where the structure is very rigid, right?
Right. Yeah.
So I joined a small consulting firm called Interday. And I'd say that really kind of what majorly helped me to build my PM skills. I worked with on a few different projects for clients, where things like stakeholder management or building metrics, dashboards, and all of that, which are very, very integral part of what I do today as a product manager. All of those things I learned hands-on. So the best part was now I could see that, until this time where I had to sort of really try hard and tweak experiences from my research days, which really don't align a lot with PM, right? I didn't really have to do that anymore because now I'm saying that I'm actually working on projects for which I need to use the skills, right? So I work in the consulting firm for 1 year. And after that, I moved to a full-time PM role at Tubi, where I'm working now. So going back to your main question, I think the the process that I followed myself was that fix the goal, which is landing a product management role, and find out what are the different intermediate steps I can take to reach that goal, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
To be more precise, what are the intermediate designations or titles where I can work in if I have to be fit one day as a product manager? And we have LinkedIn today where I personally, in a positive way, of course, I personally stalk through a lot of profiles of people just to understand that, how have people moved up in their career? How have people grown over time, right?
Yeah.
And it was really through that, like I would say, it was really through that stalking process that I learned that a lot of people who come from these very odd backgrounds, like it can be research, it can be, like some core engineering, like people who have been in electrical engineering or mechanical engineering. I saw that consulting is a very solid stepping step where they have been in consulting for a year or 2 years or so, and then will transition to product management.
Right. Right.
That was
Yes.
really the process that I followed, and it eventually worked out for me. So I'll advise people, anybody who's trying to make this transition, that fix your final goal and then figure out that what are the 2, 3 routes that you can take to reach that goal. And once you are very clear on that route, you just need to execute.
Rudra, so I'm just again summarizing what you said. So one of the ways to go about it is look for other people. Now we have LinkedIn. We can look through their journey as to how they have transitioned in such a role and map out for yourself what is the closest that you can get to, which can be a stepping stone. For your case, it was consultancy that gave you the idea of what PM is all about. And that's where you could crack the interview finally. And so whatever, as a PhD or any other STEM professional, you're planning to go through that journey of other people and understand what is it that you can do to get closer to where you are. Right, Rudra?
Absolutely, yes.
Yes. Okay. So on that note, in the process that you got rejected so many times, and also because I work with so many PhDs, most of them come with this mindset, they have this imposter syndrome playing out badly and madly at the back of their head. Okay, I haven't done this. So has that happened to you while you were on this transition? And if it did, how did you deal with it? And if it didn't, then that also you share with us.
Absolutely. So yeah, it will be wrong to say that it never happened to me. And definitely there are a few, like couple of instances, especially initially when I was kind of, eager to make this move.
Right.
It did occur to me at times after getting a rejection that, that probably I'm not really good enough, or probably, this is something that's not meant for me, right?
Yeah.
In general, Rima, I would say that, and across my career, like I have been like a person who um likes to focus more on, um like how can I get this thing done rather than like sort of procrastinating or spending a lot of time thinking that it's not happening for me, right?
Yeah.
I personally believe, and this is something you mentioned at the very, introduction of this call.
Yes.
I personally believe that there are only few exceptions like Stephen Hawkins or some other people. Other than that, almost everybody here has more or less same skills. It's really about, or I'd say almost everyone here has more or less same ability. It's really about, are you persistent enough? Are you focused and dedicated enough to work on yourself and elevate you to that level, right? So for me, of course, there are a few times initially when I got frustrated on getting a lot of rejections. But beyond one point, I realized that being frustrated is not going to help me land a PM role.
Yeah.
Rather, I spend that time and energy to figure out, okay, what needs to be done? What do I need to
Yes.
work on in
Yes.
order to make myself a good fit for a PM role, right?
Right. Yeah.
And the other thing I'd also say, and I think this is particularly relevant for PhDs and people coming from research, if you are planning to make this kind of a move, you'll
Mm.
have to keep aside your ego.
Yeah.
It has happened with me as well, and I'll give you
Yes.
actual experience of how this happens.
Yeah.
So for those of us who have been in research programs or PhDs and all,
Yeah.
we know what amount of effort it takes to publish a paper,
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah.
It takes like a whole lot of struggle, right? You fight with your boss, you are struggling to find out conferences, you are
Yes.
right at the end of the deadline, and you have to now revise your paper and resubmit.
Yeah.
There's a lot of struggle involved. There's a lot of blood and sweat that goes into publishing a paper.
Absolutely.
I had, because I've been in a research program in India, I had around like 2 or 3 publications.
Mm.
And till one point, I was very adamant that I I have to have this on my resume, right? To know what amount of effort I had to put in order to get this done. So there's absolutely no way that I'm going to remove them from my resume.
Yeah.
But on one point, I did realize that that can be great, and that is great. I'm no
Yeah.
way downplaying the importance of those papers.
Yeah.
The people to whom I'm trying to sell this resume, they don't care at all about those publications, right?
Yeah.
And that was very, very important realization where I understood, again, going back to the fundamental, that you have to sell what your customer wants to buy.
Mm.
You might have really brilliant things that you have done, but if the other person is not interested,
Mm.
then as good as useless for them,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So
Yes.
this is one example, and there are other things also, I'm sure. So, but then I realized that, personal ego doesn't really help when you're trying to make these kind of moves.
Mm.
So keep that aside.
Mm.
Whatever brilliant things you might have achieved during your research or PhD or postdoc, that's all good.
Mm.
But right now, if your goal is to move to product management, you will have to make yourself 100% fit for a product manager role. And for that, whatever needs to be done,
Yeah.
even if that means removing things from your profile, you'll have to do that without any hesitation.
Right. Thank you so much, Rudra, for covering that point of publications and ego. Because again, this reminds me of my recent post where I've talked about how the academic ecosystem is centered around more around ego, and industry is more about accountability. And when it comes to resume, almost every PhD that comes, they highlight their publications at the top of the resume, which is doing no good. Like the hiring manager doesn't understand how this is going to help them achieve their revenue goals and all of that. So you have to get rid of that and speak in the lingo that the hiring manager understands. Okay. So on that note, I want to quickly shift gears to networking and writing. Okay. So again, one thing that PhDs and researchers struggle with badly is networking. They don't know how to reach out to people, and they are very hesitant to ask for help. I guess part of it stems from that ego that you have been speaking about. And on that note, I see that you have created this newsletter, which is about organic networking, right? So, Rudro, I want to ask you, like, we both have also connected because we write on LinkedIn, right? So, how writing helps you in networking, and also the host of other skills that writing helps us in, particularly as researchers, we should, keep leveraging this skill and keep working on it. So, your thoughts on that, Rudro?
Yes. Yeah, networking, I'd say, like, plays a very critical role in the current market scenario, not only for landing jobs, but I'd say in general, if you want to grow in your career,
Yes.
I think networking has, like, a big impact.
Yes.
Uh, Firstly, I think you need to understand and realize this really, like, in an honest way, that you cannot do everything by yourself. It's the hard fact, right? You will need people and a support system who can kind of push you towards your success. So you need to build that through networking. Now, coming back to your question of how writing helps, I think writing helps in the sense that you don't know that whatever you have gone through or what you are thinking, there are a lot of other people as well who relate to that same thought process, who have experienced the same failure or struggle or success, right?
Yeah.
So I think once you write about your experiences, then that sort of, creates this relationship between you and the other person, where the other person thinks that, okay, this is something that, this person is talking about, which is very, very relatable to me, and I would like to get more engaged with that person, right? Exactly, let's say how we are having this podcast today, right?
Yeah.
So I think um writing, whether that's on LinkedIn or Substack or Medium or whatever, but in general, expressing your thoughts in an unfiltered way and in an authentic way, that really has a lot of value. You have to keep in mind that when you are writing, the the thoughts that or ideas that you share, they should be very, very real, right? Don't get into the loop of like, I need more engagement or, like don't, what I'm saying is that don't get influenced a lot by those vanity metrics,
Yes.
because they might look great apparently, but I think at a very fundamental level is going to be the idea and the thoughts that you share that's going to help another person remember you. Right? So I'd say that, as long as you are able to share authentic, unfiltered, and real insights from your experience, that can really help you build your network. Secondly, I'd say a lot of people I've seen, don't really have great clarity around what networking really means.
Yeah.
Networking does not mean that, hey, hi, can you refer me for the job? This is not networking, right? Networking really means that, hey, I really got excited by something you shared or by your profile. I'd like to learn more from you about this thing, or this is an interesting topic. I thought that, I would like to discuss with you if you are open for a conversation. And then, eventually you build on top of that, right? And in the long run, like when there is let's say there is a certain opportunity that you might be interested in, and you see that, okay, the other person might help me. Yeah. That's when you reach that, okay, I'm interested in this thing. So can you please help out? And 90% I can tell you for sure that if you have built a relationship with the other person will be more than happy to help you, right?
Yeah.
Networking has worked greatly for me. I have in the US, or actually even the role in Siemens. I combine everything. Till now, I've worked in 4 companies. 3 out of these 4 roles happen through networking, right? Whether either it was,
Yeah.
sorry, go ahead. You were saying something.
No, I'm sorry for interrupting you. I'm smiling because this has been the statistics with my previous guest too, who was a director at SABIC in USA. This has been my journey to networking, which has got me jobs at the peak of recession. You remember the 2009 economic crisis.
Correct.
So I got landed jobs at General Electric and Honeywell, and that's also the reason I transitioned into a role which is entirely different from what I was doing as a researcher at a CSIR laboratory. So I can so relate to the fact that when you're speaking about networking, and I see that it's a skill that pays forward always. And as you mentioned, Rudra, that it's just not for landing job, but it's also to grow in your career. This is exactly the point the previous leader also mentioned in the podcast, that it's also to grow in your career as a leader that you need networking. So you just stressed more on it and highlighted it further, how it's like a core skill that each one of us need to develop, Rudra.
Yes, I mean it's I know sometimes it can get difficult, like, to be very honest, like me personally is also not an extrovert person.
Right.
But I think like what I've learned is that you don't need to be an extrovert in order to network, right? You can be an introvert and you can still network successfully. My like from time to time, I try to grow my network, but if you really like, ask me about my core practice around networking, I have like a core group of 15-20 people, right? I mean, I can have 10,000 or other followers, but I really have a core group of 15-20 people with whom I stay connected from my side from time to time. So that can mean, simply checking in with them that, hey, how things are going, or let's say on occasions where we, greet each other, like it can Christmas or something, or in general, like talking about topics that, that is of interest for both of us, right?
Okay, Rudra, I know we can go on, and there's a lot more that I would love to know from you. But because we are heading towards the end of this session, I would like to ask you these 2 last questions. Okay. Number one is, because we spoke about writing, right? Writing on LinkedIn. So, say if you were this hiring manager and you bumped across a profile where the person is writing about product management, though they're not into product management, but are doing their research and writing about product management, and are bringing up some really great insights, and the writing style and everything shows their approach, process of thinking. Would that attract you as a hiring manager? Would that create an impact on you as a hiring manager?
I'll give a very honest answer. That will be probably no.
Okay.
And I'll tell you the reason why.
Yes.
Because right now, especially over the last, I'd say 4 or 5 years or so,
Yeah.
if you look at LinkedIn,
Yeah.
uh, like, like it's flooded with posts from different people, right? Not only product, but anything, any area you pick up, it's flooded with posts, right?
Yes, yes.
If I think of myself as like the hiring manager, and let's say I'm right now I'm scrolling down my LinkedIn,
Yeah,
and I'm recruiting for a PM role.
yeah.
Um, I will like be very, very like I'll be very, very surprised if I really am able to find a post which is sort of really, really out of the box, right? So I don't think this can be a metric for a hiring manager to uh invite someone or call someone or consider someone for a job.
Let me
This can
let me
okay.
interrupt and stop you there. So let
Yeah.
me rephrase the question. Say if the person is eligible enough, they have all the eligibility criteria that they need to meet for a PM role, and
Hmm.
on top of that, they're writing on LinkedIn, sharing their insights on LinkedIn. So would that add to their impression? Would think
Yes.
a little bit.
Correct. Yes. So yeah, so that can add to their to their like overall profile. So
Yeah.
you
So,
can think
so if
about writing as an add-on, right?
yeah, right.
And probably I assume that if a person is like interested enough to like write a lot about a certain topic on LinkedIn,
Mm-hmm.
then probably he or she would have also like like published like business articles and things like that outside. So I
Mm-hmm.
think all those things um collected together, that can really be a good add-on for your profile.
Yeah.
But like you said, given that everything else fundamentally that's
Aligned.
needed for you, you have
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right. Right. Okay. And a follow-up question for this is there any particular degree from any institute that you would suggest, or is there any resources that you would like to guide PhDs to if they want to get into a PM role apart from the newsletter that you have? Would you like to share something? Then I can put it in the show notes later on. If there's anything you could share on that note, Rudra.
100%. So yeah, there are a few different things that I can suggest here. Um, Me and my like friends, two of my friends, one from Microsoft and one from Walmart, we actually wrote a book, which is exactly on guiding people who are looking to make this transition to product management.
And it's available on Amazon, right? It's I
It's
am.
available on Amazon. Yeah. It's called I Am the Next PM. I can send you the link later.
I have
So I
already.
think
I wanted to hear it from you. Yeah.
oh, okay. So that is something that I can definitely suggest people to take a look at. There's another book called Cracking the PM Interview.
Mm-hmm.
Which is again, it's one of the bestsellers in the product space, and it's a really, really good book that will kind of, anyone who is very new to the PM world, the book will guide you through, the different things that you need to learn about or the different skills that you need to build if you want to successfully appear for a PM interview,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So that's a very relevant book. Other than books, so learning books is one thing, but again, if come back to what I stressed about earlier as well, I really feel that your hands-on experience is really what can make a big difference.
Mm-hmm.
So I would ask whether you're a PhD or you're doing some other programs in research, try to look for opportunities where you can get involved in hands-on projects through which you can gain product management skills.
Right.
So this can be like, for example, there are a lot of business competitions that happen. That is a good opportunity, like, while you are still kind of in academia where you can participate in and like, you kind of get a sense of business and product management. Uh, Moving to, if I talk about academic degrees, like something that I did, for example, a master's in engineering management,
Yes.
there are some other like similar programs as well. I know there are masters in product management.
Mm.
Uh, I know some people they do this masters in business analytics. So you can get into this kind of degrees to
Get
kind
started.
of to get started, and like through the degree, again, whichever degree you choose, whichever college or university you choose, just make sure ahead of time by doing some research that you will get opportunities for internships, because like we discussed earlier, without the internship just the degree is not going to help whatever university it can be. So
Right.
make sure to get some hands-on opportunities to build your product skills while you are a part of that academic program.
Mm.
So yeah, people can definitely come for that. And the third option I've seen some people doing is not easy. I'd say, in fact, this is probably the hardest option, which is some people do get into entrepreneurship.
Mm-hmm.
So the entrepreneurship is something that's kind of considered highly valuable for product management. And there's a reason, because when you are an entrepreneur, you can no longer say that, okay, I'm just interested in performing experiments. You have to perform experiments, you have to build the product, you have to sell the product, you have to do everything, right?
Yes.
Whereas like entrepreneurship is considered as a highly valuable skill for product management. So, and I know a lot of people I've seen who came from a research background, they built some product, and then they sold that in the market, right? Probably it was not a very big business, that's fine. But as long as you're doing entrepreneurship, you'll get that end-to-end real life experience of what it means to build and sell a product. And that's exactly what we do as a product manager, right?
Yes.
So if you can get into entrepreneurship, that is highly valuable. But I also feel that that's a difficult choice, because getting into entrepreneurship also means that there are a lot of sacrifices and compromises that you might need to make, whether that's financially or something else. And I think that probably it's not possible for everyone at all the time to make such decisions.
Yes.
So, but these are the two, three routes that you can take.
Yeah. So thank you for adding those elements of entrepreneurship. And I can totally relate when you're talking about it from the PM aspects. And that can also be a topic for another podcast. But without getting into that, this is my perhaps last question, Rudra, for you. So you're in your journey from, say, 2019 as a product engineer to now becoming the technical product manager. Reflecting back, connecting the dots back. What's one thing that this whole journey has taught you? Or what's one thing that you think if you had learned earlier, then this journey could have accelerated?
Yeah, give me a minute. I'm just thinking how to sort of come together my thoughts. So I think one thing, and I think I talked about this a little bit earlier as well. So one thing that I feel that if I could have developed within myself way earlier, then things could have been faster, which is that selling yourself in the way that is relevant for that particular role.
Right.
And I'm going to give you maybe one or two very quick and simple examples of exactly how that affected my transition, or how I feel that sort of took me a little longer. So since we're talking about product management in specific, when you apply for product management roles, and when you get these interview calls, there are certain product management frameworks that you need to follow. If you remember, I initially talked about this structured approach that you need to follow, and that's evaluated in a candidate. So for a long time, I was of the impression that I have solved critical problems before as a researcher. So I mean, I can just do it in the same way, right?
Yeah.
I don't need to really get into any of these fancy frameworks or whatever people discuss about.
Right.
But at one point, I realized that it's really about connecting with the other person. And then if I keep following my old approach, the truth is that the other person is not able to connect. And it's not their fault. It's just that, every role I feel has its own way of thinking, and it has its own way of approach. So if I have to make myself relevant and a good fit for product management, then I need to talk in the same language what a product manager understands. If I'm talking the language of a researcher, then the other person will not understand what I'm trying to say, right?
Yeah.
So this is one thing which I feel that if I would have, sort of made
Pivoted
myself
faster. Yeah.
earlier, yes, I think the transition could have been a little earlier.
Right.
And I forgot, you had another question, right?
Even I forgot now what was the other question. But this was mainly one thing, that what was your one learning? And I made some notes for me. Firstly, I want to be thankful to you for being very honest about all the questions that I have asked. And my three takeaways when in this whole entire conversation is, of course, this last pointer where we need to recognize things that we have to work on faster and have that mindset to make that shift. Like from your experience, you understood it's about shifting your mindset and your process of talking and the words to the lingo that the hiring managers understand, and using those frameworks that they appreciate, right? And the second thing you said is giving yourself ample time to fail, right? So if you start early, then you give yourself ample time to fail and learn quickly and make the transition faster. And the third thing is about this tangible impact. Okay, so as you always mention, that research is required. You need that deep exploration, the fundamentals and all of that. But then if you want to get into industry, you have to know how to make it into a tangible product that has a impact, that people want to buy, that solves a problem for them, right? We have to develop that skill. And if you can develop that skill, then all of this transition becomes a lot easier. And I know I will need to have you once again, because this conversation went on for a little longer than we had planned. And so I'm glad I had you on this podcast, and look forward to having you one more time. And on that note, I'll go back to my first way of introducing this podcast, which is about being a smart, dumb PhD. So I call myself a smart, dumb PhD. What do you feel about that? I'll just end it on that note.
No, I think that's really, I'd say, uh, like a relevant term, because what I feel is that smart, yes, of course, you need to smart, in order to kind of do things here, but then you have to stay dumb. The day you think that I'm not dumb and I'm the smartest person in the room, like that's the end of your career or whatever you are doing, right? So I think you need to stay dumb on purpose, so that you know that, no, I don't know everything. There are a lot of things outside of what I'm already aware of, and I need to learn them and improve myself. I think this is a fundamental thing, that has kind of driven me throughout my career till now, and also going forward it will, which is that um, I don't consider, irrespective of my affiliations and whatnot, I don't consider that what I know is the best. And I always stay open to learn from people who are not only in positions higher than me, but also in positions junior to me. In fact, I can honestly tell you that there are quite a few things which I have learned uh, you know, from my mentees. So I mentor a lot of people who are trying to, make similar transitions, or, like kind of build a career in product. And there are quite a few things I've learned from them, and then I've, like kind of put them into use in my day-to-day work, and that has been greatly impactful. So yeah, I think you need to stay dumb, so that you always have that hunger and that enthusiasm, that okay, there is something new, there is something unknown. So let me, figure out what it is and let me improve myself.
Yeah, and thank you again for touching on that point of that. This has been a trait that I've seen in every leader, and that's something I imbibe in myself as well. Every good leader has this trait of learning, not just from people above them, but also people who are, being managed by them. Because the learning happens both ways. Because what your mentees bring to the table are their learnings, and we can learn from that as well. Because when you give them the space to do it in their own way, there are new learnings that come from them, and that accelerates your journey as a leader. So thank you so much for adding on that as well. And we, I think, had a very candid conversation. Thank you so much for those resources and everything. And maybe I look forward to having you one more time sometime.